While on a road trip through a remote, forested region, Dan and Trina's car unexpectedly breaks down. With no help in sight, they seek refuge in the home of a retired soldier, unaware they're stepping into a dangerous trap fueled by his twisted fantasies. Tension brews between the couple as they drive in silence. An argument flares up. Trina is accused of cheating, while Dan faces the weight of losing his job. Emotions boil over and turn physical, leaving both shaken. After a long pause, Dan pulls over and asks if Trina will stay in the car. She doesn't answer. Instead, she grabs her bag and follows him. They come across a small roadside eatery and head inside. Dan pays at the counter and thanks the cashier. Trina searches for a seat. Dan gets a call from his younger brother and reassures him they're just 4 hours away, despite worsening rain. On his way to join Trina, he bumps into a stranger and quickly apologizes, but the man reacts aggressively. Things escalate fast. Trina rushes over to defuse the situation, but a fistfight breaks out, disrupting the place. She's shoved to the ground during the scuffle. Dan helps her up while the stranger tends to his injuries. Embarrassed and furious, Trina pulls Dan outside as he continues hurling insults. Back on the road, tension lingers. Trina, overwhelmed, asks Dan to stop. He does, puzzled. She steps out and walks to a quiet lakeshore, needing a moment to breathe and collect herself. The husband trails behind but stops when he spots her sitting alone, gazing at the water. After a pause, he quietly joins her. She vents her frustrations while Dan listens, offering a genuine apology. He admits managing his emotions has been tough. Pulling her into a firm hug, her anger fades, replaced by a soft smile as she playfully pinches his cheek. They share a quiet, intimate moment beneath the calm sky. Later, lighthearted and relaxed, they change clothes in the car and press on. Dan's brother calls with good news: their father is walking again. Relieved, Dan promises to call back soon. As they continue, a military checkpoint blocks their way. Soldiers inform them of an ongoing operation and redirect traffic to a new highway. Dan pleads to pass since they're close, but the soldiers deny him. He sighs and takes the longer detour. Night falls as they drive the unfamiliar road. Trina voices concern about their location. Dan reassures her, recalling how he used to ride his motorcycle here. Thick fog rolls in, forcing him to lower the windows for better visibility. The road grows darker and isolated. Trina notes the absence of houses or cell signal and grows uneasy. Focused, Dan jokes they'll ask anyone they find. Soon, they spot a small house. Dan stops and talks with the resident, who confirms they're on track but warns it's private property. Trina feels somewhat reassured, but a local warns them to turn back. She asks her husband Dan to rethink their plan, reminding him they're trespassing. Dan refuses, saying they've come too far and it's unlikely they'll be caught now. Suddenly, their car begins to smoke and stalls, alarming Trina. Dan inspects the engine but can't find the problem, and her constant questions irritate him. He tries calling for help, but there's no signal. Overwhelmed, he lights a stick and decides to wait until morning. Tired and annoyed, Trina sleeps in the back seat while Dan stays outside, uneasy in the shadows. The next morning, Dan attempts to start the car again but fails. Frustrated, he checks the engine once more, but nothing works. He tells Trina he will walk to find help. Retracing his steps, he reaches the small house they saw the night before, but it's empty. Disappointed, he returns to the car. Meanwhile, Trina notices a man approaching with a rifle over his shoulder, dragging a carcass. He sets it down and offers to help. Cautious but relieved, she accepts. The man introduces himself as Jimmo and asks if she is alone. She mentions Dan. Without a word, he examines the engine while Trina watches carefully. Shortly after, Dan returns and asks if she has phone signal. She checks, but there's none. He then notices the man nearby. Dan offers help to push the car, but the man ignores him, staring blankly. Dan repeats himself louder, and the stranger finally speaks, asking how far Dan wants to go. Dan says he wants to reach the road's edge or a mechanic. Struggling, Jimmo suggests taking the car to his house, and Dan agrees. Once there, the man gathers some belongings and invites them inside. He introduces them to his wife, Lala, who gives a warm but silent smile. They sit at the dining table, engaging in cautious conversation. Suddenly, static crackles from a two-way radio. Dan tries to call for help and request a mechanic, but it's not working. The homeowner responds for him, promising to call again tomorrow when someone's available. Later that night, the couple steps outside, quietly arguing about their uneasy situation. Jimmo joins them and says the mechanic will come in the morning. He offers Dan a drink, which he declines, saying they're tired and just want to rest. Lala also refuses. Jimmo offers them a room inside, but they politely refuse and choose to sleep in their car. Dan thanks Jimmo and hands him cash. Jimmo accepts and tells them to call if they need anything. Inside the car, the couple shares their unease about the local pair but tries to ignore it. In the house, the man removes his clothes and necklace, then lies down beside Lala. She initiates a gentle intimacy with her husband. Meanwhile, Dan smokes his usual calming stick while watching his wife sleep. He leans in, and Trina stirs, smiling at him. They begin a tender exchange when a shadowy figure watches from the darkness. Trina notices and gasps, pulling away quickly and wrapping herself in a blanket. Alarmed, Dan grabs a weapon from the glove box and steps outside. He scans the area but sees nothing and returns to the car. The next morning, Lala knocks on their window and invites them in for breakfast. Dan asks about the mechanic, but she ignores the question, saying her partner is outside. In the backyard, Jimmo cooks over a fire while a two-way radio hums beside him. Dan approaches and asks about the car technician. The homeowner avoids a direct answer but finally says the mechanic will arrive later. Unconvinced, Dan nods slowly and walks back inside. Inside, he sits beside his lover, who gestures toward the food. He shakes his head and quietly pours a cup of coffee. Without saying anything, he steps back outside. Lala sits beside Trina, who thanks her for the meal. Through the window, they watch Jimmo sharpening a knife while his partner tells stories of his past as a soldier and family man. His daughter once got pregnant out of wedlock, and her mother forced her to abort. She later took her own life, and so did her mother, overcome by guilt. Jimmo hears the gossip and angrily chops meat, watching them. Meanwhile, Dan grows more frustrated, struggling with the car. Trina checks on him, but he admits he doesn't know how to fix it. Overwhelmed, he curses at the engine, and she tries to soothe him. She shares how Jimmo has been hunting the man who wronged his daughter, unsettling Dan. Their talk stops when they see Jimmo calling them from a distance, inviting them to lunch before they meet the mechanic. Inside, the couple sits with the house owner, who leads a short prayer before they share a meal. The mood is tense, so the couple tries to ease it by asking about the retired soldier's past. He refuses to answer and questions what Lala has told them. To protect Lala, Trina denies any stories, and an awkward silence falls over the table. After eating, Dan asks if Trina has phone signal, but she still doesn't. Jimmo comes down the stairs carrying a machete and tells Dan it's time to find the mechanic. As Trina watches them leave, Lala warns her to stay away, but she ignores it. Later, Trina tries again for a phone signal, unaware Lala is watching closely. During their walk, Jimmo mentions he has a wife and asks if Dan needs help with getting her pregnant. He then talks about his beautiful daughter and how his religious beliefs stopped him from crossing a line. The soldier accuses Dan of ruining his life and suddenly lunges with his biolo. Dan narrowly dodges the blade and fires, but misses, eventually losing his weapon while defending himself. Hearing the gunshot, Trina rushes toward the noise as the two men struggle, tumbling down the mountainside. Jimmo gains the advantage, hitting Dan with a rock to weaken him. He pins Dan down, striking him repeatedly before strangling him with his belt. Dan's screams echo until he loses consciousness. Afterward, Jimmo hides the body and heads back. On the road, he encounters Trina, who anxiously asks about Dan, but Jimmo stays silent and walks away. Frightened, she flees into the woods to hide. Gimmo searches briefly but gives up. Once gone, Trina cautiously returns and discovers a body. Realizing it's Dan, she breaks down, overwhelmed with grief. As night falls, she runs through the darkness, sobbing, until she reaches the small house from before. A stranger appears, approaches gently, and calms her. She trembles as she tells him everything and pleads for help. He calls someone to assist her, and goes to alert the neighbors. Soon after, the man returns with Gimmo, causing Trina to scream for help. Instead, she is dragged away and locked inside a small hut, where she cries and begs for freedom, but no one listens. The next morning, the couple brings her food, and Lala unlocks the door to hand it over. Trina tries to escape but is quickly subdued, breaking down in tears while the man locks the door again. Later, he watches the hut as he drinks coffee. Eventually, he grabs a flashlight and looks inside. Seeing her weak and cornered, he unlocks the door and takes her to the house. Lala helps bathe her while he silently watches. Then, holding back his anger, he explains why he killed Dan. Once cleaned, she is taken upstairs and seated in a corner. The soldier gives her fresh clothes, which she accepts quietly. Still shocked, he treats her like a daughter, speaking softly and guiding her, while his wife silently observes the strange new dynamic forming. That evening, they descend for dinner. Lala arranges the table while her husband takes on a fatherly role, helping Trina to sit. Gimmo offers a solemn prayer, then tells his wife to watch over their daughter. The captive looks dazed as he serves her food and encourages her to eat. Though confused, she accepts the feeding, which pleases him. Afterward, he escorts her to the bedroom with Lala quietly following. Gimmo leads her inside without a word. Lala listens outside as he prays aloud. Inside, Trina trembles, tears quietly falling. When he finishes, he demands she sleep with him, promising no harm if she complies. Reluctantly, she agrees. He caresses her face, forces a kiss, and ignores her sobs. Grabbing her hair, he tries to calm her before forcing her onto the bed. Her cries grow louder. Elsewhere, Lala weeps in darkness at the sounds. The next day, a cheerful Gimmo brings silent Trina outdoors with another man. Proudly, he shows her his vegetable garden and tells the other man to make coffee. Trina remains numb as they walk to a small hut. When Gimmo steps away, she spots her chance and runs. The stranger carrying coffee spots Trina and quickly sets it down to chase her. As she tries to escape, two men block her path. Meanwhile, Gimmo notices and rushes inside to grab his handcuffs. With help from the three men, they capture her and drag her back. Outside, the captor waits with the cuffs, securing one on her wrist and the other on his own, stopping any further escape attempts. Still shaken, Trina remains silent as Gimmo resumes the tour, pointing out sights and speaking in a confused manner. Returning inside, he frees her and shares old photographs, his voice cracking as he recalls past memories. Overwhelmed, she quietly cries while examining the photos, slowly piecing together the family's story. By night, Gimmo sings with a trembling voice as the two women listen. Between songs, he tells of his struggles as a soldier in Mindanao. Eventually, he leads Trina upstairs, while Lala watches silently as they disappear into the bedroom. The following day, the woman settles into life as a captive princess, resigned to her situation. To prevent any escape attempts, Gimmo chains her to various corners of the house at different times. Once, Lala brings her clothes, and Gimmo inspects them eagerly, but his expression darkens when he notices some items missing. Furious, he lashes out at his wife while Trina watches helplessly, unable to intervene. Later that night, when the house is silent, Lala quietly climbs the stairs. She hesitates outside the bedroom door before sneaking up to the third floor. After waiting for hours, she descends, musters courage, and gently opens the door. Inside, the two are asleep, so she tiptoes to the altar, takes a key, and carefully frees Trina. Awake and alert, Trina listens as Lala whispers it's time to escape. They move silently downstairs, and Trina thanks her rescuer, who explains why she couldn't allow this to continue. Just as they open the door to leave, Gimmo appears, weapon in hand, trembling with rage. Lala steps forward, speaking calmly and trying to reason, while Trina seizes the moment to flee. In the chaos, Gimmo shoves Lala aside, and the gun fires accidentally. After collapsing, Gimmo realizes his terrible mistake and screams Lala's name in anguish. Meanwhile, Trina runs through the forest, tears streaking her face. Behind her, the deranged soldier shouts Yana, his daughter's name, and fires wildly into the air. A sudden gunshot makes her stumble. She hides behind a tree, breathless and trembling. Soon Gimmo finds her. He raises his gun, but Trina, terrified, pleads pretending to be Yana. Confused, he lowers the weapon and scolds her softly, insisting he just wants to protect her. He talks about how her boyfriend ruined everything and urges her to come home. Through tears, Trina gently tries to break through his delusion, telling him she isn't Yana. She explains that letting go is the only way they'll both be free, reminding him that his daughter is truly gone. Gimmo's eyes well up with sorrow. But just as a fragile silence settles, she hears the click of his gun, and her body tenses in fear. Trina stands frozen as Gimmo lifts the weapon to his own head and fires. The sound echoes as his body collapses. Overcome with shock, she lets out a scream and bolts into the darkness. After a desperate run, she reaches the roadside free at last. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more stories like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications and give it a like. Thanks for watching.